Hello, and welcome to Scott's Odyssey. Being that the weather in PA is finally being cooperative, I figured we could get out and go into the woods of central PA and see what we could find before the weeds get too high. And as luck, or more accurately, pre-planning, lots of research, good maps, and a GPS would have it, we will not be disappointed. It's a hole. See you in a minute. Welcome back. If you've watched my videos before, thank you for your patronage, and if you're new to Scott's Odyssey, welcome aboard. If you remember from the other videos on this channel, the expansion of the railroad systems in Pennsylvania had a boom in the 1840s. What? You don't remember? What? You didn't watch the other videos? Fine. Here's an oversimplification that is still historically accurate. So there were canals in Pennsylvania. They kicked off around 1826. They went all over the state, and for the important one, started on the east and ended in the west. The interconnection of all the disparate canals happened in 1840. During this time, there were so many financial upkeep issues with the canals that were bringing iron everywhere that someone said, hey, let's use all this iron and turn the canals into railways. And being that in the middle of PA, where the Allegheny Mountains were located, the canals were already using rails and stationary train engines to pull the barges over the mountains and drop them back into a canal. It seemed like a pretty good idea to just dump the canals and turn it into rails. So beginning in 1840, the canals began to get filled in and rails were put on top. Hopefully that caught you all up, but I highly recommend that you go and watch the videos regarding the forges and the coke ovens. Now, we are here in Union County, where in 1840 the county planners were deciding if they would interconnect the Philadelphia and Pittsburgh lines. The major problem was one was to the north and one was to the south, and there was this really big river called the Susquehanna also causing an issue with how to interconnect the two lines. So during the Philadelphia Railroad Convention of 1847, the idea was put out to run the Susquehanna Railroad along the west bank of the river toward Lewisburg. The response at the convention was crickets. Nobody could come up with the money or a financially viable solution that would make something like that work, so nobody wanted anything to do with it. Now I'm going to detract from the story a little bit and the history behind this, because one of the things that I found out, I'm out here with a friend who's a photographer. His name's Bob. He and I, we came out and we hit one of the tunnels, and then we went to hit the other tunnel. And now I'm going to put in a clip to show you what 2.7 miles walking distance looks like when you try to drive it by a car. The ideas on how to do the interconnection and viability of having a rail go fully east to south without a spur or separate third rail company to interconnect with continued up until 1853. In 1853, a literal team of investors from Lewisburg all the way to Tyrone pitched the idea of a Susquehanna River branch that would go to Lewisburg and shoot through the Juniata Valley, also giving direct route into Altoona. The idea fell quiet again. In 1856, the Catawissa and Danville line was built, stopping in Milton, and the Pennsylvania Erie line stopped in Montandon. In 1858, an interconnect from Lock Haven to Harrisburg was put into place. And talk of an east-west connection fell quiet again. This time it stayed quiet because the Civil War was no longer brewing, and it actually kicked off, causing all sorts of issues with how and what was being transported, when and where and with what. The Civil War ended and the railroads picked up steam again. Now, here's the fun part. That brings us to how this location came into being. Because the bridge in Montandon that crossed the west branch of the Susquehanna was destroyed in the flood of 1865, more commonly known as the St. Patrick's Day flood, it was the railroad that agreed to put tracks through if Lewisburg built the bridge and the railroad station. Boom! Thus was born a local scandal, a whole lot of unhappy people, and well, the Lewisburg connection. Now, you need to realize a lot of time from the initial discussion of the railroad connection from the Susquehanna Valley and through the Juniata Valley had passed. And in that time, Altoona was already big and cooking as a hub to the railroad system. It had rails going all the way through and out Tyrone. Center County had all of its rails and spurs going all the way into Spruce Creek. And the big problem between all of them was a matter of track gauges being different. It wasn't until 1870 that an agreement of a 4 feet 8 1/2 inch gauge would be determined, and in late 1871, rails were being laid going westward as a single line. In 1876, the PRR leased the lines in existence and then continued the push westward, realizing they were going to have some issues with the Lewisburg Center and Spruce Creek Railroad, as there were a couple of oddly shaped mountains in the way and a few wiggly creeks. One was at Paddy Mountain, and the other was at Cherry Run and the Forks. In 1877, the PRR carved out a tunnel through Paddy Mountain, which became known as the West Paddy Mountain Tunnel. Why is it called the Poe Paddy Tunnel today if it goes through the western part of Paddy Mountain? Well, that name did not come about until the late 1930s, when a camp located between the Poe Mountain and the Paddy Mountain was established by the Civil Conservation Corps Camp S63PA, or better known as Camp Poe Paddy. Likewise, 1877, the PRR carved out the twin to the West Paddy Mountain Tunnel just a short distance away, called the Beaver Dam Tunnel. Now, I spent a significant amount of time and energy trying to find the origin to the name of the Beaver Dam Tunnel and came up with nothing. As a matter of fact, the tunnel's first mentions as named Beaver Dam Tunnel occurs previous to its being carved out, with no reason given for such a name, so anyone could speculate. But we really just don't know why it's named that. If you happen to know why, leave a comment below and be sure to give a citation or reference to where you found the reason for this name. Regardless of that, the Beaver Dam Tunnel later became referred to as the Coburn Tunnel, after Coburn, which is located just a little bit more than a mile away as the crow flies, and it's kind of odd being that the tunnel's equally just as far as Ingleby, or for that matter, the mountain it goes through is called Tunnel Mountain. So it could have been called the Tunnel Mountain Tunnel, or the one it attaches to, which is Slide Hill Mountain, so it could have been the Slide Hill Tunnel. Either way, we are left with calling it Beaver Dam Tunnel or Coburn Tunnel, and that is just the way the history has evolved around this entire site. So let's recap. The Lewisburg Center and Spruce Creek Railroad started in 1871 as an interconnection between the East and West Pennsylvania Railroad between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. In 1876, they leased their lines fully to the PRR. In 1877, the PRR bore holes in the mountain for 2 tunnels in Union County to interconnect the lines. In 1879, they reformed as the Lewisburg and Tyrone Railroad. In 1883 through 1885, the Bellefonte, Nittany, and Lamont Railroads were built for final interconnection to Tyrone. In 1915, The rail lines were taken over by the PRR fully, and in 1970, the lines were abandoned. So with all of that information giving you the short on when and why these tunnels exist, let's get ready and do some exploration.
Da, 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 da.
Lights!
If everything's ready on the dark side of the moon, play the 5 tones. This is what it sounds like to walk through a corrugated tunnel. The tunnel was corrugated because the tunnel was collapsing. And this is what happens when you take a remnant of history and modernize it and try to play it off as if it's still a piece of history. and it's not. Now it's a commercial, well, not commercial, it's a publicly available trail system. Sorry, everybody. Don't mean to sound disappointed, but I am. The echo's still going. It's still resounding, still bouncing.
If you'd like to see another abandoned railroad tunnel video, you can check that out over here. As always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.